Hello, Seattle. I'm Christine Morgan, and I've been writing for 20 years, which sounds horrible. But in that time, I've produced a lot of books, a lot of short stories. I've self-published, small press, ebooks. I read, I write, I review, a little bit of everything. And I think a little bit of everything pretty much sums up my career. I will start for you with an excerpt from my story Urgent Care, which will be in Witches, Stitches, and Bitches. I always wanted to be an evil girlfriend, so late to the party, but honorary title. So, here we go. Once upon a time, there was a little girl whose dumbass big brother got mixed up in an occult gang war. The details she'd pieced together over the years. Not that those details mattered much, not to her. Her memories of that other life, that early life, were vague. Glimpses, flickers, and impressions. Half-remembered voices to go along with half-remembered faces and places. They'd had a dog. Her room was yellow, so yellow and cheery and bright. Their house was big. It had a green yard lined with trees. Daddy wore a blue uniform and built things in the garage. Mommy read lots of books. The new baby cried a lot and was stinky. And there was Mr. Deadface. Except there wasn't Mr. Deadface. There was only her dumbass big brother, who thought it would be funny to hide in little Laura's closet, wearing the new gang mask he was so proud of, and creep out and scare her so bad she almost wet the bed. Their parents had been furious. A few nights later, it hadn't mattered anymore because their parents were dead. So was her dumbass big brother. And so was the stinky baby who cried a lot. So was the family dog. As far as the rest of the world knew, little Laura died right there with him. With them. The spell wards woke her the instant someone opened the gate. She sat up, fully alert, reaching to brush her fingertips across the top of the clock on her bedside table. A soft voice from it informed her that it was 1:07 a.m. Lovely. Another middle-of-the-night emergency. She threw back the quilt and swung her legs out. Since she slept in simple cotton scrubs, all she had to do was tuck her feet into the slippers waiting on the rug. As soon as she rose from the mattress, Grimalkin moved to curl up in the just vacated warm spot, rumbling a loud, smug purr. Her second-floor living area consisted of a sitting room, a kitchenette, the bedroom, and a tiny bathroom. Needing no light, she made her way by familiarity of long habit to the door on the landing at the top of the stairs. As quaint and cottage cozy as her private quarters were furnished, the ground floor was all business. She padded down the steps, avoiding the creaks, hearing someone outside. A heavy, burdened tread clumped on the porch. A male voice spoke, the words too muffled to make out, but the tone one of worry and concern, masquerading beneath reassurance. A "hang in there, just a few more minutes, you're going to be fine," hearty encouragement kind of tone. The first knock had no sooner fallen than she turned the deadbolt and opened the door. Her initial assumption, sick kid, panicky parents, urgent care, couldn't wait till proper civilized hours, vanished as she inhaled the thick smell of blood tinged with gunpowder. "Need some help, he's hurt," the male voice said. A second voice groaned, then wheezed in a way that threatened to turn into a gurgling cough. The sound of it told her that this was a bad one, and time would not be on her side. Slow, fat drips splattered on the mat. "In here," she said. "This way." "It's pitch dark. You can't see a damn thing." She slapped at wall switches as she led them through the lobby and into the home surgery. The drips splattered onto industrial linoleum now, the clumping boot steps and labored wheezes of breath seeming to echo in the more confined and enclosed space, where the scent of antiseptic predominated. "Put him on the table," she said as she made for the sink. "You're Laura?" the man asked, once he's done as she instructed. "The doctor?" "I'm Laura, the closest you're going to get to a doctor." Scrubbed up and gloved up, she turned around. As usual, this elicited a startled pause. She could almost feel the man's gaze sweeping over her. Chalky complexion, black hair liberally salted with premature white, slight stature and slim frame, but always returning with unease to her face. "You're blind? What gave it away?" Without waiting for a reply, she went to the table. It was her eyes, of course, or her lack thereof. The discolored lids sunken and perpetually sealed shut, skin grown together over hollowed sockets. That was what gave it away. She could, and sometimes did, conceal them behind dark glasses when she needed to go out of town. The only reason to do it here at home would be to spare others the awkwardness and unease of having to see her disfigurement. To which, she reasoned, screw them. That was their problem, not hers. If they felt guilty or uncomfortable, too bad. A word and a gesture brought the witch sight to her so that she could examine her patient. Then it was her turn to pause. Not for long. She didn't have time to pause for long. She quickly worked a stabilizing spell, then an incantation of anesthesia. A gunshot wound was what she expected. She was no stranger to gunshot wounds, of course. Even here, far from a big city, some patients preferred the discretion of her less orthodox care, and a real doctor or hospital would be obligated to report such injuries to the authorities. Devil's Cape, come for the quaint coastal New England charm, stay for the seemingly inexplicable rashes of madness and violence. This was no gunshot wound, but it was nonetheless obvious why they'd come to her. Couldn't very well call for an ambulance or take someone into an emergency room with a giant damn claw sticking out of his chest. Curses, hexes, inexplicable illnesses, magical mishaps, hauntings, possessions, attacks by supernatural creatures, questions better left unanswered, and things that people were reluctant to take to the authorities made up a large part of her practice. Giant damn claws definitely fell into that category. Wait in the lobby if you want, she said, as she cut rapidly through the patient's shirt with surgical snips. I'll stay, the other man said. Gonna be messy. I'll stay, he repeated. Will he make it? Maybe. Not the response he'd been wanting, but he could do the reassuring and encouraging tone all he liked. Laura didn't mollycoddle or spew false hope. Even neighborhood regulars who'd been visiting the clinic for years remarked that she was, well, brusque, to say the least. Bedside manner of a coroner, others said. Or, according to the local children, so mean that she didn't even give them a lollipop or sticker after they got a shot. Tough. They could go see their pediatricians for that. If it gave her a bitchy reputation, so what? Better a bitch than a cow or a sow. As for this guy, he was all the way under and couldn't hear her anyway. Why sugarcoat it? She snipped open his plaid flannel shirt. He wore a Kevlar-type vest and undershirt beneath it, which hadn't done him much good. Snip, snip. Neither had the charm bracelet cluster of protective amulets on a silver chain around his neck. That she didn't snip, but slipped over his head and set aside. Traumatic impalement. The giant damn claw had gone in between two lower ribs, angled up, pierced a lung. The only reason the man was still alive was because his friend had the presence of mind not to try and pull it out. If he'd done that, she wouldn't have a patient on her hands. She'd have a bled-out corpse. Instead, the claw itself acted as a stopper, a cork in a bottle and a bung in a keg. Imperfectly, though. That slow drip came from where the blood welled up, overflowed, oozed, and drizzled. Moving him, however necessary, however carefully done, had still resulted in some bumping and jostling. More blood on his lips and chin was what he'd coughed from the punctured, collapsed lung. Each struggling breath, each of those wheezing gurgles and wet gasps had made it worse. The claw itself wasn't quite a claw at all, but more of a blade of grayish, chitinous, horn-like stuff. It was tapered and slightly curved, like the digging scoop of a very long, very thin garden trowel. The tip had almost gone through, stopping, lodged against the man's shoulder blade from the inside. By some fluke of luck, miracle or fate, it hadn't severed any major blood vessels. Again, if it had, she wouldn't have a patient on her hand, but a corpse. The gray blade's other end, jutting out of his torso, sported the stump of some sort of limb, an ugly knob of knuckle bone and ragged gristle, trailing mangled connective tissue and tatters of scaly-looking slate-covered leather, covered with dark clots of coagulated ichor, the strange flesh scorched in places, as if it had not been severed, but blown off at point-blank range. And I'll stop there. This is from my book, Murder Girls. It has been out for a while in 3 volumes. This is from book 1, Disorganized. The others are Organized and Spree, because, you know, that's how serial killers operate. The entire trilogy is about to come out in 1 volume from KHP Publishers. And so let's meet the girls. I bet we could get away with it. That was what Rachel had said. 8 little words, thrown out there as an offhanded remark while she was watching television, and the rest of them were engaged in their own pursuits. I bet we could get away with it. 8 little words. And now here they were, standing around a body. A bloody, muddy, crumpled, battered body. The rain came down. Splish, splash, splatter, splat, in the puddles, on the grass, dripping from the leaves and eaves, soaking their hair, their clothes, glimmering in the rectangles of light that spilled from the downstairs window and the wide-open back door. Splish, splash, splatter, splat. For a long moment, the only other sounds were wind-stirred branches, distant traffic, a sitcom laugh track from inside the house, and their own ragged breathing. Gwen's throat worked, making little clicking, gulping noises. Anna Maria stood motionless, her eyes huge pools in the dark, a fist pressed to her mouth. Darlene suddenly gagged, spun, and took 2 clumsy, stumbling steps away into the yard. She bent and puked in the bushes. "Shit, Rach," Jessie said. Her voice was low, almost stunned. She let go of the old bowling pin, which struck the body with a meaty thump. "You were right. We did it. We actually did it. You were right." Rachel passed a hand over her face in a slow, dreamlike swipe that smeared blood spatter and rain into watery red streaks. "What? Just like you said." "Uh-uh. Yeah, huh? That's not what I said." Darlene straightened up and turned back toward them. Anna Maria touched the ivory crucifix she wore on a fine gold chain and murmured a prayer. Gwen crouched and reached trembling fingertips toward the body, but stopped several inches shy of contact. "You did so," Jessie said. "You said you bet we could kill someone. And look, we just killed someone." "I did not. Both of you stop it." Anna Maria stepped between them. "Just stop." But I didn't stop." They stopped. No one spoke. The rain fell. Splish, splash, splatter, splat. The body lay there. The old bowling pin, which was normally left on the back porch in case they needed a doorstop, lay beside it in the mud. Once white, age-yellowed like bone, with stripes like the finger marks and blood across Rachel's cheeks. Made quite a weapon. Jessie had been able to get some serious swing. Did a hell of a number on a human head. A baseball bat might have done no better. Gwen reached out again, and this time gave the body's shoulder a slight nudging push. Darlene groaned. "Rachel," Anna Maria said. She'd been wet to begin with, straight out of the shower with no time to dry off, in a hastily donned robe that was now pasted to her like a coat of paint. Her hair hung long, black, and sodden over her shoulders. "Rachel, isn't that what you said?" "We all heard it." Jessie glanced to Gwen and Darlene for support. "Didn't we?" "Yeah," Darlene said. She bet we could kill someone." "Well, that isn't exactly what she said, though." Gwen's words, soft and almost diffident, were barely audible over the rain. "All right, then what did you say?" Anna Maria asked Rachel. "I bet we could get away with it," Rachel repeated. Those 8 little words again. And now here they were, with a body at their feet. Stop by and ask my husband Tim for a free copy of my first one, While Supplies Last, my first fantasy novel from way back long ago. And thank you very much.